we'll be having this topic under this headings: incidental durotomies, dysesthesias, incomplete decompression, nerve root injury, and recurrent disc herniations, epidural hematomas, and discitis. So, of late in 2023, there is a systemic meta-analysis done in Korea. They have screened around 7,000 endoscopic patients retrospectively with more than 25 studies. So they found dural tear and dysesthesias were the two commonest complications occurred in interlaminar endoscopic spine surgery. And here are some of the studies mentioned. First of all, it is by Rutan, and all of them are having dysesthesias in common. So dural tear, overall incidence is around 2.7%, but it ranges from 0 to 8.6%. In interlaminar, the incidence goes quite low. It ranges from 1.1 to 2.4. So most tear occurs in interlaminar because the play is more, the neural retraction is more here, and it mostly occurs with Kerrison punch and with the dissector. After that, there is a drill and RF, which combined causes approximate 30%. So HS Kim et al., they have divided these dural tears in 4 types endoscopically. Type 1 is peripheral, which is 29%. They have occurred 29% in peripheral types. In central types, it is almost 70%. In complex types, 7.4, and unrecognized, that they have not studied that much. They don't have that cases. So as you see here, Kerrison punch is the 44% culprit, and after that, tissue dissector, drill, and forceps. So this is an original article by HS Kim. They have divided into 4 types. Type 1 to type 3A can be managed with the endoscope, like putting a tachosil or Duragen patch, or as previous speaker has spoken, some Liga clips can be applied. However, type 3B and 4, type 3B to 4, you have to convert them to open surgeries. Then these are the zones mentioned by Hyun Jin Park, that is axillary area, that is zone 1. Zone 2 is thecal sac area, and zone 3 is traversing area. So identification of your fragment, identification of your traversing route is of paramount importance before the surgery. Otherwise, it may lead to your dural tears. So this particular case, axillary fragment was identified in the pre-op itself, and then it was tackled. But as I told, in the axilla, there was a dural tear. This dural tear was because of the dissector. So there is a study, collagen matrix, that is Duragen. Dr. Nidhi sir has told it with his experience. Duragen has a good property for healing of the dural tears. So there was an analysis. We also followed the same. We placed the Duragen patch on this axillary tear, and there was quite substantial improvement in the post-op. Patient didn't have any dysesthesias, so we just kept our Duragen there. This is a traversing route dural tear. It was due to the dural sheath, which was causing more retraction on the traversing route. So you see, there was in the arrow pointed, there was only a parietal the dural outer layer of the dura was torn, and no neural structures were coming out. So here also we placed a Duragen patch, which was kept it onlay, and we stopped the saline afterwards and just came out. No dysesthesias with this patient also. This particular stenosis case has a central dural tear. This is most common area in endoscopic interlaminar surgeries where a tear can occur. So this, as you see, the tear is small, so we only placed again a Duragen patch, which is a collagen matrix patch, as an onlay technique, and we kept it there, stopped the saline and came out. So how to prevent a dural tear? Cutting the ligamentum flavum is of paramount importance. We have to see what we are cutting. The tip of your instrument should be seen. You have to turn the camera to the other side to see the distal edge of your instrument, and you have to hold the flavum, pull it up, and then cut. Your saline will cause already, partly hydrodissect the thecal sac and will create a dead space there. But you have to be very careful. So for the dural tear, takeaways are identification of defect is very much important. Incidents of dural tear is common with interlaminar. In case of large dural injury, don't hesitate and repair the defect, go for it. Identify the structure before cutting, and overall incidence is less as compared to open and MIS surgeries. So postoperative dysesthesias, the incidence is 0.36%, mainly due to improper handling. In beginners, it is very common to have this complication. So thermal injuries are more prone to have these dysesthesias. Drilling and over retraction also causes the risk, and majority of these patients will get covered with oral steroids and some proper post-operative care. Epidural hematoma is again another complication. In endoscopy, it is approximately 1%. The literature shows the risk factors are increased rein pressure, as already mentioned by Nidhi sir, irrigation pumps, prolonged duration of surgery, older age, preoperative anticoagulants and antiplatelet drugs. Increased epidural pressure is a direct reason for these hematomas, and nearly 50% of these needs endoscopic decompression. So as Dr. Shrikant sir has told, the decompression is very much important in stenosis. It depends on position of your working cannula, type of disc herniation, and sizes of herniated fragments. Mostly incomplete decompression is common in down migrated and high grade stenosis. So what are the precautions? Herniated fragments should be adequately released from the annulus before you grasp them, and careful check for the residual fragments is absolutely necessary. So this is an image showing what is the end point of your stenosis decompression. You should have both traversing roots free, as well as the foraminotomies of both the sides should be done before you call it as a complete decompression. This video I'll skip because it is already being shown by previous speaker for the adequate decompression. So recurrence, incidence of recurrence is 5 to 13% in open surgeries versus endoscopy has 1.1 to 4%. Risk factors again aging, weight bearing improperly, then obesity, old age, trauma, and central huge disc herniation. So this is a case operated interlaminar prior, then a small disc prolapse is on the opposite side, on the left side. Then intervertebral infection, discitis. After conventional spine surgery, it is around 0.1 to 4.5%, and it is mostly bacterial. Literature shows in endoscopy it is having incidence of 0.47%. So minor infections don't need anything, but if the infection is major, you have to take a biopsy of it and start accordingly antibiotics. The most important thing, this is a reference image. Most of our fellows are doing this. Don't poke from outside to the irrigation bottles, as it is a source of infection. This is a case post-op interlaminar discitis, and this is another complication which is more commonly seen in beginners. You see, in pre-op you have to have a good planning. In post-op, the right side image showing almost complete excision of inferior articular process, leading this kind of patients are potential for spondylolisthesis in the future. This is the rarest complication anybody can have in their life. We found this, we encountered this once in our life. This is like a sheath breakage. This was in the early part of our life where, you know, we are too stiff trying to move the drills and all very hard, and this can occur in initial, 10 cases to 15 cases where you don't have 3D orientation, you don't have, flexibility and all. So we removed that sheath fragment which was there, and this is the intra bleeding as already being told by Nidhi sir, so I don't go there. Okay, thank you.